restart account, and that means your date will change, is if you ever hit a zero, either because of debts or you literally hit a zero. How much you have to give? You have to give 2.5% of your total wealth, zakatable assets, of your total zakatable assets. So you're not going to count your house, etc. Only your zakatable assets. Conditions of validity. There's two aspects that are very, very important. If it is necessary to have intention of zakat. So if you're giving charity away, that does not count as zakat. Typical example that happens. A person comes, he asks for money, and you take some money out of your bank account and give it to the guy. $300. 2 days later, it's time for you to pay zakah. It's like, oh man, the $300 I gave, I should have counted as part of zakah. What is keyword? I should have counted as part of zakah. So it is not zakah. You cannot count something of the past as something future. Like if you pray salah, listen, you cannot decide as Isha salah after you finish praying your salah. Can you? No. So if you prayed 4 rakats, that's what nafil. Now when it's time for Isha, you make new intention for Isha salah and pray again. You cannot attach your intention of something of the past. Another typical example. You gave a person a loan of $1,000, right? And now the person is not paying 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and like, man, I'm just going to forgive him, right? Now, you cannot make intention of something which you're not actively doing right now. So let's say, listen, typical example in salah is, I'm going to pray salah tomorrow, so I'm going to make intention, or I'm going to pay the salah at certain times, so I'm going to make intention for that salah now. It doesn't work like that. Intention is attached with action. Intention always has to be attached with action. If intention is separated from action, then intention is not valid. So, for my zakat to be valid, I have to have intention at the moment of me actually giving the zakah, or at least taking out the zakah. What does that mean? If I'm calculating my zakah on the 1st of Ramadan, and I have $5,000, I take out a certain amount, hey, this is my zakat money, then that zakat money, once I've taken it out and separated it, that is sufficient, that this zakat, this money is dedicated for zakah. However, if I now switch the money around, now my intention is gone. That means if I have that $500 in an envelope, this is my zakat money. Then someone comes and I really need to pay someone really quick. So I take that money out from the zakat money, pay the guy. My intention is gone. Now I have to remake my intention for when I take another $500 out or $200-300 out to give that zakat money. Second one is tamlik. We already discussed this. That means transfer of ownership. So anytime we are giving zakat, but there's no one to receive the transfer of ownership, then remember that zakat is not valid. Now what is the transfer of ownership? Transfer of ownership is when a person has full capability to exercise whatever he wishes to do with that money. So whatever he wishes to that money, in terms of using that money either to help himself or to increase his wealth. Either to help himself or to increase his wealth. The reason that's important, increasing his wealth, we'll discuss it a couple of slides later. Zakat of wealth, we already discussed that. Deductibles. When you're calculating your zakat, let's say you calculate all the money you have. You calculated what? Listen, your checking account, your savings account, listen, your 401k and everything. You added everything, and maybe you have a total of $300,000. Now, from $300,000, what can you deduct? Number one is short-term loans, credit card loans, etc. You can subtract that. Owed rent. Owed rent. Remember, not potential rent, owed rent. And there's slight the difference between this. When you sign your rent contract can come of one of two ways. Either it says that if you break this lease, you're still liable to pay the entire amount of the contract, right? In that case, your entire rent amount is what? Is a liability. Yes? Listen. Or your rent contract could say that, listen, if you break this, then you're only responsible to pay a penalty. Only responsible to say a penalty. That means if you break the lease today, are you liable to pay next month's rent? No, you're not liable to pay next month's rent. And thus, can you deduct next month's rent? No, you cannot deduct the next month's rent. Why? Because it is not a liability as of yet. Once it becomes a liability, it will become. Now, let's example. 1st of Ramadan happens to be the 3rd of March, for example. The 1st of Ramadan happens to be the 3rd of March. When is the rent usually owed? On the 1st of the month. So now, if you're calculating your zakah on the 3rd of March and you have not paid your rent as of yet, can you subtract your rent? Yes, you can subtract rent. Why? Because it's currently a liability that is owed. Number two, owed utilities. Not upcoming utilities, but owed utilities. Now, usually utilities work out. Listen, at the end of the month, they send you the past month's bill, so it's always going to be owed utilities. Owed taxes. Again, any tax, let's say this year, the first of Ramadan is what? Now, remember, taxes are owed when? The first of the beginning of the year. Are owed in the beginning of the year. Whether you calculate it or not, it is what? It is owed. Are you guys with me? Listen, taxes are owed in the beginning of the year, whether you actually pay it or not. When you calculate it, that's a different situation, because you have it up to the April 15th to actually what? Calculate the zakat, taxes, and actually pay it, right? So you can subtract your owed taxes for this year. 1 year of long-term loans. If you have long-term loans, for example, a home, a mortgage, etc., 30 years, 15 years, you can calculate the amount that you owe, the principal amount only of how much you owe in this 12 months. Now how much you want to pay, but how much you actually owe. So let's say your payment every single month is $3,000. Within that, there's a couple of, now in Islamic, I'm going to use a conventional loan for our understanding purpose, and then we're going to go into Islamic loan, right? In a conventional loan, you have the principal amount, and then you have the the interest amount, and then you have the taxes, and then you have the insurance, right? And so you have all these four categories that are within there. Now, what we're talking about, 1 year of long-term debt. What is the one? First of all, you cannot deduct interest. You cannot deduct interest. That's number one. Now, besides interest, let's say every single month, out of the entire amount, the actual amount that goes towards principal is only $1,200. So you will multiply $1,200 by what? By the entire 12 months, and you'll deduct that much. In Islamic loan, Islamic finance situation, now, it becomes a little bit complicated. I'm only going to explain one situation. The other ones, if you have one, you can ask, inshallah, in personal time. So now, let's say a person does something called a musharaka. In a musharaka, what happens is called diminishing ownership, right? So a person, one side, a person is losing ownership, on the other side, a person is gaining ownership. But within that gaining ownership, he is also paying something called a what? Rent. Listen, every single month. And so, a person asks a question, if I sell this house today, listen, how much of it am I liable for? Listen. And so based on that is how much you will have to pay till what? Or how much you can deduct for the entire year. So let's say a person's payment per month in Islamic finance is, let's say, $3,000, right? Now, on the first month, the amount he pays towards his principal is a very minimal amount. Let's say it's only $200. And the amount of rent he's paying because of his diminished ownership, maybe, let's say, $1,000. And then, so $1,200 total, but $200 is towards principal, and $1,000 is towards what? His rent. Then how much can he deduct? 200 times? Guys, 200 times 12 is how much he can deduct. Now, remember, I'm still not talking about taxes. Taxes he owes, he can deduct his taxes as well. Listen, and what was the other thing? Insurance also. Now, insurance, the question I ask any homeowner over here, if you had to sell your home, do you have to pay for insurance next month? No. So insurance is not deductible unless it's this month's insurance. Is everyone clear with me? Yes? Listen. However, I know a person may say a lot of times that insurance is collected and where? Deposited where? In escrow, and where it is then given out over time. But now, I ask a question. That insurance money which is collected and put in escrow, are you allowed to use it for a future house if you buy another house, or is that money gone once you sell the house? Huh?
It will prorate,
it will prorate, and the money will be given back to you? Yes. In that case, you cannot subtract your insurance. Why? Because that money, is not being taken from you in a way that you cannot get it back. You can receive that money back. The insurance cannot be subtracted, right? Nevertheless, easiest thing, the most important part is out of your principal, how much you have to pay every single month will be multiplied by 12 and be subtracted. Now, a person may say, man, this is some difficult calculations. Well, we live in a difficult world which have created a lot of difficulties for ourselves. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for us. But once we get a hang of it once, inshallah, the calculation will become easy over time, every single year, because it's the same calculation that you run every other year. Money lent to others. This is one that everyone gets into debates. Why do I owe money? Why do I have to pay zakat for what people are not paying me back? Right? There's two aspects. Number one, if I gave a person a loan, rather, any money owed to me in exchange of zakatable goods. Any money owed to me in exchange of zakatable goods. Now, what are zakatable goods? If I give a loan, that money, if I had it, would it be zakatable? Yes. So now, the money that I am waiting to receive is in exchange of a zakatable. It's an asset. If I sold items of my business asset, is that a zakatable asset? Yes. That means the money that's owed back to me in exchange of it also is zakatable. What is not zakatable? Let's say, for example, I do a job. That means I work for a person. Right? The work I did, is that work zakatable? No. Let's say I'm a plumber. Is the plumber work zakatable? No. So now, the money I am owed in exchange of that is not zakatable. Well, so once I receive that money, I will just add on to my wealth. And next year, when I calculate my zakat, if I still have it, I pay on it. If I don't have it, well, it's gone. But now, if a person owes me, let's say I have a total of zakatable assets of $5,000, and I am owed $5,000. Every single year, when I calculate my zakat, I will have to calculate that zakat, the $5,000, as part of the money, which makes me, number one, liable to give zakat, and number two, it will be calculated in the amount I have to pay zakat. However, I don't have to pay the zakat. Now, can you tell me 2.5% of 5,000? Someone very quickly. $125, right? So the $5,000 I have with me, I have to pay zakat $125. Yes? The $5,000 owed to me, I also have to pay zakat how much? $125. Yes? Listen. The $125 I have with me, I have to pay that zakat right now. I have to pay that zakat right now. But the $125 I have to pay for the money that's owed to me, I only have to pay it once I receive the what? 5,000. Are you guys with me? So I can hold off on it. And if it ends up happening that person never pays me, do I have to pay the zakat? No, I don't have to pay the zakat. But if the person pays me after 5 years, that means 125 for this year, and next year, 5,000 minus 125, which is what? $4,875, 2.5% of that, and then next year. So you know how you draw a graph. Basically, you're going to subtract the amount of zakat you every year, and you have to pay that zakat over a period of 5 years. And when you get the money back at the end, that's how much total zakat you would have to pay. So every year, you subtract the amount of zakat you had to pay last year, and calculate the zakat and the rest of it, and hold on to it. And at the end of the year, if you get it, when you get the money back, you can. Now, a person may ask why. Why do I have to pay zakat on money I don't have? And this is the key understanding. In Islam, any money owed to you is your right to demand it at any moment, even if you have a set date to get it back. Any money owed to you, you have the right to demand it back at any time in case of your need, and that is the reason. So let's say I give a person $5,000, I can go to his house and demand it. That is why, if he's not giving the money, I take him to court, and the court declares him bankrupt. Do I have to pay zakat on that 5,000 anymore? No. Why? Because there's no way for me to get that $5,000 back anymore. So once the person has been declared bankrupt, either by a said entity or by the government or by the judge, then post that, or the person files bankruptcy, then post that time, you do not have to pay zakat for that $5,000 anymore. Everyone clear? So everyone understands the reasoning? The reasoning is, I have the potential to get it back. Once I lose the potential to get it back, then no more zakat on that item anymore.
If somebody had the money for 5 years, did not return, so you like 125 times 5 years through?
No, 125, sir. Oh, yes, that's easy calculation. But technically speaking, you would decrease 125 for the second year. And then you calculate on 4,875, and then and so on and so forth. Yes. Yes. I mean, in 5,000 is not much, but when you go in the 1,000, the 10,000 and the 100,000 and millions, then it becomes significant amount, right? Long-term debt and short-term debt. Okay, long-term debt. Second. I believe everyone understands this already, but just going through it. Long-term debt, which is a debt fixed in installments for more than a year, mortgages, student loans, finances. Short-term debt, which is debt immediately due within a year. Anything less than a year is called a short-term debt. Long-term debts are not deductible, except for the immediate upcoming monthly installment. Now, the reason I put this in there, even though that's not what I said, is this is the opinion of the UK scholars. The UK scholars say you can only deduct 1 month, not 1 year's deductible. So just to keep in mind, the scholars in America have agreed upon an easier path than the UK scholars. If you guys want to follow the UK scholars, go ahead. That's much better. Short-term debt in terms of deen. Short-term debt, the entire amount can be deducted. Stocks and shares, I believe this is the part everyone actually came for. No one actually cared about the first part because they've been here for that every single year, right? Shares for selling. Now, shares and stocks can be divided into two parts. And so stocks and shares, that means I'm buying it. My intent is what? I'm going to sell. And in that, you have to give zakat in the entire portfolio. And whatever it's worth, and that's how much you pay on. And simple as that. Stocks and shares. Zakat will be payable on dividends and earned, and also on market value of the zakatable assets found in investment. However, if one is unable to determine what percentage is zakatable and what is not, then he should pay zakat on the market value of the share itself. And so this means a lot of times we are part of different what do you call it? Not agencies, what do you call brokers? And the brokers buy a whole bunch of different stocks from different places, and sometimes we decide we're going to keep it for a very long time. And so if we are able to go through in each share and understand the dividends and separate that from how much the non-zakatable assets are, which is very difficult when you have multiple stocks, then you can do so. But if you can't, then what do? You just give on the entire portfolio itself. Yes. Yes, that's what I'm saying. So everything you give zakat. You give zakat of the entire thing. So I think the confusion becomes, okay, let's say, take a different example. How? I'm going to, yes.
So not every company has all their price value as you use it.
Yes.
You give it a value first.
So let's get to this, okay? Let's say you have it. One is you go to your brokerage and you buy all these stocks. A lot of times to find out how much each one is might be difficult, especially the amount you bought. But let's take an easier example. You bought a stock of Google long time ago. So you're holding on to it, now, mashallah, it has significantly increased. Now, if you had to go pay zakat on specifically your shares of Google itself, what you would look at, the total assets of the entire company. Right? And total assets of the entire company, a lot of it are non-zakatable assets. A lot of it are non-zakatable assets, and talk about internet, computers, workers, and all these kind of things, which is counted in the total as a value of the market value of the item. So all of that would be subtracted. The only thing that you would be calculating on is number 1%, the zakatable assets, which is cash or investments, or investments of that specific company. And even then, you would subtract liabilities. You subtract liabilities. And now, today's time and age, you can go on the internet and pretty much, get a sheet of what the entire, sheet of that entire company is. And so, what you would do is, you would take the value of the entire company, you would calculate their assets, zakatable assets, which would be very, very difficult. Now, in the most recent calculation done by the UK scholars, and UK scholars, as some have said 25%, others have gone to 40%, so the 40% is the most safest, and some scholars have 30%. So you want to go the middle route, 40%, 25%. The 25% obviously is the most, hey, I want more money for myself. And 40% is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the safest, I would say. That means 40% of almost any given company will be, the business assets of any given company will be 40% or less. 40% or less. So if you're calculating at 40%, you are at a safe stage. That means that much you would give zakat. What does that mean? Let's say a company is worth $2 million. What is 40% of that company? 400,000. Yes? So how much would you, now, $400,000 is what we would regard as a zakatable asset of that company. Now, if you are a shareholder of the company, you own one share out of 100 shares. How much money is your share worth? 1% of 400,000 is 4,000. 4,000. So how much zakat? 2.5% of 4,000 is how much you would pay. Are you guys with me? Yes? One more time? Or everyone's good? About $100, yes. But can we go through it one more time? Listen, a company is worth, $2 million or $1 million, right? And so now the zakatable assets of that company would be safely around 40%. So the 40% of that entire company's zakatable wealth is how much? $400,000, right? So if you are a 1% shareholder of that company, basically your share is worth how much? $4,000. So you would pay how much? 2.5% of that $4,000. Rather, you would say, take that $4,000 and add it to all the assets, zakatable assets that I have to calculate my zakat. Everyone knows me? Yes? Yes. I don't hear a nod or a yes. Okay, yes. Okay, wait. Okay, let's finish before we continue. Okay, now, the reason I say, let's go back to the previous slide. Now, this is in any company where we are able to deduce so. We're able to deduce so, right? Now, let's say if you have an old share stock from where? From Google or Amazon or any of the major companies, and you can easily calculate that. In the same way, if you are in a startup, it's easy to calculate this. You know exactly what your percentage is, right? However, if you're going to a brokerage, and let's say you're a part of a brokerage and buying stocks, and if you are buying to sell that stock, what do you calculate? Do you do 40% or the entire stock? Entire stock. And if you are calculating, let's say you are keeping as to earn dividends, but over time, you are unable to deduce exactly how much your part is, then how much you give it up? The total amount. The total amount. Why? Because you're unable to deduce exactly what the 40% value is, where you're taking that 40% value out of. Are you guys with me? Yes.
40%, you don't own the company, you own a share, right?
Yes. But you have to understand 40% to take your share out, right? Understand? So if you cannot...
Also, they give you a choice to reinvest the difference or send it to cash.
So if you're reinvesting, over and over and over again, now what is it? That means it's part of thing that is earnings, and you'll give it an entire portfolio. You'll give it an entire portfolio. The only time you work at 40% is if you actively own that part of that company, and that money is shows the ownership, so to say, of that part of the company. Okay, let's use a typical example. Let's say on Robinhood, right? You buy a share on, give me a company. Apple. And they have micro shares, right? Let's say you have a micro share. So now you say, okay, I'm going to buy this for the next 1 year. And you hold on to it. Maybe your share goes up to, your micro share goes up to maybe $2,000. Let's say you cash out, right? Now you cash out, now you can either take that as a cash, you hold on. Now if you're holding on to it, you will add that $2,000 onto that cash asset that you have. Yes? However, if you reinvested it, what happened? Now that money has been reinvested, the new share that you have bought is what? Is the new portfolio that you'll be working with. So the new portfolio is such that you're buying it just to sell it, then you'll pay on the entire amount. However, if holding it for dividends again, then you will calculate 40% of that company if you can actually sit and count that or calculate a 40% of that company. So let's say you took $2,000 out. And with $2,000, you bought a micro share of another company, let's say, random company, Microsoft, micro share of that company, right? Now, if you're buying it to just sell it again, what's going to happen? Then you're going to give on the entire portfolio. But if you say, I'm going to keep on to this Microsoft one for, let's say, next 5 years, that means technically you are a micro shareholder of Microsoft, a very, very minute amount, right? You are a shareholder of that. And thus, what will you do? If you're able to calculate your amount of how much you're supposed to pay zakat on, you can do so. But if you cannot, you give on the entire portfolio. So let's say over time, your Microsoft share of $2,000, how much? $2,000 grows to about 20,000. 20,000, which is unrealistic. But anyways, after 2 years, now you have $20,000. You will do, because Microsoft is easily accessible, you will take 40% of that. 40% of that. Let's look at different calculation. So entire assets of Microsoft will be something you get on Google, and then after that you will take out 40% of what Microsoft is worth, and then you will divide that by the amount of shares that you own of Microsoft in comparison to the amount of shares out there, and then you pay 2.5% of the total amount of shares that you own. A lot of calculation.
Sir,
yes.
Can I just take the 40% of the share if you have, say, like you have $2,000 in your
20,000.
20,000.
Yes.
So you just take 40% of that and pay on that. Will it be the same thing as dividing by the total share
So
and then multiplying by?
It would be okay. Okay, I'm going to ask a question, and if you answer, when you look at your share value, when you look at share value, is it counting excluding liabilities or including liabilities? Anyone knows? Anyone knows? Okay, so including liabilities. No, what I mean by liabilities, let's say a company usually when you look at the market share, that means if the company has to be sold today, it's worth about, let's say, $2 million, right? They're going to sell the company which is worth $2 million plus how much the company owes to all the liabilities the company owes. Yes, so maybe $2.2 million, right? So now, yes. Yes.
Speculative value.
Yes.
Not a real value.
Yes.
One. Second point, all of the companies. No company exists in the stock market which does not leverage the debt.
Yes.
If the liabilities are far exceeding their assets. So that we have to consider.
Okay.
So no company. For example, I'll give you one example. Elon Musk bought SpaceX.
Yes.
Zero money out.
Yes, zero money out of pocket.
Use them in
Yes. So in that case, we will go with 40% of the total of share value. And yes, your share value, 40% of your share value, and then take 2.5% of that, and you should be good to go. So if you own 200,000, 20,000, your share is worth 20,000. You take 40% of that, and then 2.5% of that amount will be how much you pay zakat on. Yes, clear? One more time. So if your total amount of share is worth $20,000. So you will take 40% of that $20,000, which is how much? $8,000. And your zakat will be 2.5% of that $8,000. If a person wants to give on the entire amount, he can obviously do so. Yes. Now, fixed asset. By now, you guys already know what all this means. We're just going to go through it very quickly, right? Non-zakatable assets. When you calculate 40%, how are you getting that 40% from? That means non-zakatable fixed assets. Every company owns buildings, owns cars, owns employees, owns computers, owns furniture, etc., etc. All these are fixed assets which are non-zakatable, and that's why usually this consists majority part of most companies. That is why whatever is left over is usually 40% of the company or less. So, but those are not companies. Antique is a unique item by itself. So we're talking about this in business assets, right? So in antique, obviously the value rises, the value does not drop. Yes. Unvested assets. Now, only reason unvested assets would actually become a reason to be concerned, is, let's say, okay, if you have Robin Hood example, right? So you have $2,000 that you got to pay out, and now the $2,000 is sitting there, not invested anywhere. Do you have to pay zakat on it? Yes, you have to pay zakat on it because it is cash that you can cash out at any moment. The 401k. In 401k, pretty much what happens is, as the amount of years, just like money owed to you, every single year, you will have to calculate the zakat that is owed on the 401k and either pay it out the same year or pay it out once you take it out at the end. Now, peeps, this is one of the places I want to stand corrected with an opinion that I had last year. Last year I had mentioned that you can exclude, the taxes. This year I changed my opinion. You cannot exclude your taxes, and you cannot exclude your taxes or the penalty from your 401k. And the reason for that, my understanding of how taxes work at that time was that every single year taxes are calculated and which is to be paid once you take it out, which is incorrect. Your taxes are to be paid according to the amount you take out at the time you take out, not according to what it is at this very moment. And based on that, if you don't take it out, are you paying taxes? No. If you don't take it out, are you paying a penalty? No. So all that money is currently being used by your authority to do what? To create more money for you. And thus, you will have to pay zakat on those amounts. You cannot subtract the penalty and you cannot subtract the taxable amount. Yes. Once you go at the end, yes, then you can subtract that. Okay. Now, in there's something called vested amount. This is only from the employees, the amount that's given by the employer. If the employer gives any gifts or incentives, then in the employer's amount will only be included in zakat calculation only if it's been vested. As long as it's not vested, it will not be included. I don't think too many people worry about that. It's not a very major amount as it usually.
Profit sharing sometimes it could be a big amount.
It could be
the
big.
company gives you like 10,000 profit sharing, this is vested immediately. They have different schedules.
Yes. So once it hits
depends
that,
on the retirement plan. Some of them vested immediately.
so if it is vested on the day that you are what? You're paying zakah, you include it. Listen, if it's not vested on the day you're giving zakah, do you include it? No, you don't include it. Okay. The same. Okay. The entire amount. Okay. Nothing to be included. Any other questions? Yes.
When you were talking about the 40% formula, would also apply to 401k, like total portfolio where you have, let's keep it 100, $100. Take out the 40%, $40 and pay full zakat.
Okay. So I would ask a question. When you have a 401k, you have the principal obviously that you vested, and obviously all the money that is growing. So now that entire portfolio that you're looking at, in the 401k, do you have ownership of any of the company in which you have your money vested in?
You have shares, right? In 401k, you will have shares of the company.
Yes. So no. So the reason is, let's say when you I'm not going to answer that right now. I'll have to get back to you. Right. So technically speaking, the way I'm understanding it, that you could draw 40% away from any company that you are holding a share for. However, you will have to pay on the entire portfolio for anyone where obviously because the 401k, someone else is running it, right? So if you give it to if you authorize someone to invest your money for you and they're investing it, it's like mudaraba. That means you're putting money in, and whatever comes out at the end, that means you're getting your shares at the end of and they can invest how much ever. They're doing business as they wish. So at the end of the day, the total portfolio will be yours without owning any ownership from your side. Let's look at example. This is what I'm understanding. I'm not giving an answer. The way I'm understanding, let's say in your 401k you have $400,000, right? And with the $400,000, $200,000 are used to buy different shares in different companies. So you have ownership of those companies, right? Let's say $200,000 is given to a brokerage to do as they wish. At the end of the day, you're going to collect profit from them, right? Now, who owns shares of those companies through the brokerage? The brokerage owns those ownership. They're just using your money to what? To generate wealth. And so you technically don't own anything, any of those, whatever they're doing within that, right? So at the end, that entire portfolio that you have given them authority to increase wealth on, you would have to pay zakat on that entire portfolio. But the 200,000 where you own ownership, you would be able to you would only pay zakat on the 40%. This is my understanding of it. However, I will have to get back to you. I'm not going to answer the question at the moment.
When you buy anything through the broker, you own the car, and they give you voting rights. So I don't understand why you separate. You own the shares for that company. Like if you give a broker 100,000 investors.
Let's take example. Okay, let's say we're not supposed to, but let's say a person owns a share in Bank of America. Understand? Bank of America, what does it do? Understand? It goes, it does different. It takes what do you call it? It uses the money to go into different businesses. Understand? At the end of the day, understand? All when the Bank of America gives you your share, understand? All it does is gives you a total share after it has done a certain amount of business. Understand?
You're not if you're buying the stocks of Bank of America stocks, not if you're buying, let's say, mutual fund, Amana fund, or any mutual fund.
Yes.
Growth fund, any growth fund. Okay, so
Yes. So if you buy the stocks, yes. So correct, you're right. So if you have mutual funds, then in that case you will pay on the entire in the portfolio. However, if you are a shareholder of that company, then you'll only pay zakat on 40% of that company.
Because most of the 401k is mutual funds. Or sometimes they put CPA.
Okay.
Like 80-90% of they don't give you the ability to buy stocks, individual stocks, unless if you have your own solo case.
401k, yes.
But like
So
the job, like you're working for IBM or Microsoft, listed of funds, they have only mutual funds.
okay, so when you ask about 401k, are you talking about in mutual funds and stocks, or only mutual funds?
I use the mutual fund.
So in mutual funds, so you pay on the entire portfolio. ETFs, please explain.
ETFs the same thing as mutual funds, but it's different because it's like it's traded as a stock.
Okay.
Because you get in and out
If
the same day.
it's like no, yes, then yes, ETFs as well. Yes. So mutual funds and ETFs will be treated on entire portfolio. Anywhere you own a specific part of a company will be treated as 40% of that company will be zakatable. The rest of the company will not be zakatable. Yes? Does that clear it?
So what you're telling us, if you buy individual stocks, you pay this tax.
Yes.
That's what it means.
Yes.
But even though those mutual funds, they own stocks in every company. So let's take as an example, Amana fund, they buy Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, they buy those stocks.
Okay. But
so do you buy the shares that buys those companies? So could treat it the same way, 40%.
so the reason we treat it differently, okay, is when we talk mutual funds, is a concept in Sharia called mudaraba. The concept called mudaraba, which means that I am investing with a company, which a company pretty much has their hands everywhere, and wherever their hands are, right? At the end of the day, all you get is you get your what do you call it, principal back, and you get your cut back. That's it. On the other hand, when you own a share of a company, this is what somebody call in Sharia we call musharaka. And musharaka, you actually have a dedicated part of the company that belongs to you. And irrespective of how small it is, a dedicated part of it. So in the case of mudaraba, both principal and dividends and everything is included within zakatable assets. Right? And everything is regarded as lucrative. Yes.
The second example that you give in Sadaqa is the case of the share. Why? Because you actually, if you go to any of the companies,
Even in mutual funds?
yes, because of the reason is that those companies are the part. You cannot find any mutual fund which does not have companies.
Definitely, yes, I agree.
So all of these companies, they have something called the shareholders meeting.
Okay.
You are eligible to vote. You hold the shares, you can vote.
Okay.
You can vote for them. So that means you are actually part of the vote.
Okay. So I hold my answer back. Then I will inshallah get back to you. I do not have the correct answer to this whole situation. Yes. Okay. Yes.
We don't know if people in our community or relatives that we want to give super if
Yes.
they are like above the stop. But we know
So for them to become eligible, they would only be able to deduct from their total amount of wealth the amount of 1 year's worth. So let's look at the situation. A person has $30,000 in the bank account, right? And he has a mortgage, house on mortgage, and he has car payments. Both of those are long-term loans, right? So he will take how much he would owe in one year. Okay, he'll take how much he owes in 1 year for both the car and the house, and add it up, and he would deduct that from the total amount of savings that he has. If it reaches below nisab, then he is eligible to take zakat. Yeah. Let's say a person has $30,000, right? And he has a house on mortgage, and he has a car. And both of those obviously are long-term loans. And long-term loans, let's say in a house, he only has to pay a total of maybe, let's say 500 times 12, $6,000, right? That's his required payment. How much he pays, that's up to him, $6,000. The amount of he has to pay for the car, let's say is $300 times 12. That's $3,600. That's $9,600, right? So in $9,600 minus 30,000, I'm going on the negatives, 30,000 minus $9,600, that means he still has how much savings? That would make him ineligible. So for you to calculate whether a person can take it or not, you will still use the same standard, which is 1 year's worth of how much he owes. I know it's a very, very difficult situation, and so there's two practical solutions, right? Practical solution is that person, we rather appoint a person in masjid or an institution who does the job for us, because me, from an institutional perspective, can ask, and you can actually have the right to ask anything, right? So you as individual may look like, hey, why are you asking me, right? So we appoint an institution who we give them the money and tell them, hey, can you investigate this person? This person seems to be eligible, zakat eligible, and if he is, can we give it to him? So you can tell that person, look, I give all my zakat to this institution, or this organization, or this masjid, and if you want, you can go collect from them. Makes your life easier. Other one, let's look at it. I want to give another example, and you can take the analogy from there. If you had to pray salah and you had to find the qibla, listen, could you say, I think the qibla is this way? No. In the same way, you cannot say, I think he's eligible. This is, zakah is as important as salah is. So just like you can't say, I think in salah, the same way in zakah, you can't just say, I think. You have to have due diligence. Now, if a person is lying to you, then you're not responsible. Look, you ask a person, hey, look, do you have any assets? And he lies to you openly. And you don't know what's behind the doors. Are you liable for that? No, you're not liable for that. You can't give him zakat if he lies to you. Inshallah, it is accepted. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes. No. So no. So the points are not money. No. So once you cash it, yes. Once you cash. Yes, points are points. Just like a person, let's say he has diamonds, right? Diamonds are not zakatable assets. He keeps diamonds for years. Is he going to pay zakat? No, he's not. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah. No. You're correct. Yes. Yes. Not eligible. Why? Because if you take all the money and build buildings, and then the poor people are saying, we don't want buildings, we want food, what are they going to do? They can't. So remember what they say, the purpose of zakat is to fulfill the immediate need, not long-term solutions for problems. Right? Yes. Yes. You can do kind and cash. Kind and cash. Or that means things you can buy things and give it to the person as zakat. As long as the person has possession, he has a choice of taking it. Let's say you buy food. You buy food. And you said, okay, you want cash or you want the food? Yes.
You mentioned that
changes the test to non-profits? But there are non-profits that do the tax.
No, so we can give it to non-profit as long as they disperse it properly. Yes. So that's a key point. So now it's our job to do due diligence. For example, most in America, actually, they have to do it. They have to give a report of what they're using each fund for, right? A lot of our charities do not differentiate between zakat and sadaqah. They will say, let's say, operational cost is 36% of the entire amount that we collect every single year. That means zakat, sadaqah, everything included, right? However, there are a few charities now are coming up slowly, so they're becoming aware of these things, and they're conscious where they say zakat, 0% of operations, right? However, the rest of it, so like I said, for sadaqah, you can even use up to 70%. Listen, no problem. Listen, even if you use more than that, I don't say you should, but the idea is if you have to, you're allowed to. But for zakat, that's restricted because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us specific criteria for whom to give the zakat to.
Yeah, but like what people who can receive, you mentioned zakat collectors.
Yes.
Even if they have value above the nisab.
Yes.
So can it be extrapolated on those kind of?
So that's one of the things I mentioned. Zakat collectors, who appoints them? There has to be a leadership authority who can appoint them. In today's time and age, I could start a zakat, charity organization tomorrow, right? And I would have 10 employees under me, and that means the zakat I collect, a certain portion of that would give it to them. And so, let's say entire masjid decides we're all going to each open a zakat, a charity organization. That means all of us would be collecting money from the zakat funds. And so, because there's no central authority, and it comes from khudh min amwalihim. So the amilin, remember the definition of amilin are people who work for the government. That's the definition of amilin. So zakat collectors are people who are appointed by the Khalifa. So today's time, and the people who are working for organization and charity organization, 100%, they need to be paid. Listen, otherwise, how are they going to sustain themselves? But it cannot be taken from zakah. Yes. Absolutely, yes. Listen, yes. Can we give father-in-law? Yes, we can. Yes. Brother and sister. Okay, I forgot to discuss brother and sister. For brother and sister is controversy. Is a difference of opinion between the different madhab. According to Hanafi madhab, we cannot give to brothers and sisters. According to other madhab, you can give to brothers and sisters. Any other questions? Yes. And by the way, if everyone walked out, but whoever wants to go, inshallah, they're more than welcome to. Yes. You do not need to. Yes, you can call it a gift. You can call it hey, I'm helping you out. That's it. Kind. So education is not a valid sin because education is a service. It's not a kind. This is cash or kind, right? Not service. So it cannot be services because technically, who gets the payment of education? The people who are providing the education, who may not necessarily be who are eligible for zakah. Now, a person who is getting the zakah is not getting the choice of utilizing where he wishes to. Yes. That he would have to know. Yes, they would need to know. So there's one of two things has to happen, right? Either you know their condition, that they're so bad that you can give them zakatable items. So then you can give them any zakatable item, understanding that that's what they truly need. Let's say they're in the market, they're like, hey, I need a phone because I need to start a business. So you can use the zakat money to buy a phone and give it to him. That's kind. Yes, all right. However, you have to know that's truly a need. That's why it's never a good route to go to a kind unless you know 100% that person is a true need of that person. So when it comes to specifically food, this is specific, we do not cancel out food specifically because Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself did it. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam actually gave zakat with grains, etc. And that is why we do not cancel out food, even though it may seem like, hey, I'm making the choice for them. No, so that's the job of the people distributing. That's why zakatable wealth, for example, zakatable wealth, if you're going to use zakatable wealth, then you need to make it clear that's zakatable wealth, please come if you're eligible. If a person lies and comes, that's different. Finished. Yes, yes. So for example, in our madrasa, for example, there were when we were studying, there was food that was bought and given to students with zakatable wealth. And however, it will be clarified that if you are not zakat eligible, you're not permitted to eat from this food. So we would have to get food from the other line because we're not zakat eligible. So that would have to be differentiated, yes. No, we cannot. So we can, yes, we cannot count that as zakah. So that's one of the thing. Remember, action has to be connected with intention, right? So over here, the action of giving has already happened. Intention I'm making now, so it cannot be counted for zakah. Yeah, Sadaqa definitely 100%. So definitely, reward is 100%. It's just wouldn't fulfill the obligation of zakah. Yes. Mm. Yes.
Or like this is for distribution for charity. And then he decides that I give him like 100,000. Out of that 50,000 or 60,000, I can use that 60,000 for zakat. 40,000 for sadaqah. But I've already transferred that.
No, so and that's fine, listen, because he's your representative. So as long as I have not actually given it out, so when you are working for me, it's still my wealth, so to say. Listen, so when your cousin is doing it on your behalf, he is actually doing what you are doing as a representative. So yes, yes,
I'm selling physical silver or physical gold in a form of ETF, and I sell also miners. The miners tell me that extract the gold.
yes.
So what I should tell people, if you're buying physical gold, you pay 100% of the cost of it. Like I find on the
100%. Yes.
The other one is like 40%.
Yeah, because obviously you have workers, you have liabilities, you have companies, you have cars. All those things will count towards, because when the miners are coming, listen, they're not giving you gold on the spot, are they? Listen, they're going through all that work to present that to you, which obviously has a value.
Even though it starts after 4 physical gold, that doesn't matter.
No, no. Yes. Yes. No, so it's to serve. Yes, clothing, food and clothing, like kind. Yes, yes, they have to have permission. So, yeah, so that you means you're collecting funds on our behalf to utilize to buy food and clothing for us. Because let's say there's one orphan over there, he's rich. Let's say his parents died, but he has a bank account. That orphan can't consume from that money. Not be permissible. Yes. So any property that's counted as immediate need, because if you sell it, where are you going to be? You're going to be on the streets, in a sense. So that's counted as immediate need. So selling the value of your current living quarters is not counted. Yes. So let's say if you own $5 million house, but you can technically sell it, but you live in it, in a sense. So you will not count that. So basically, you have one relative who has another friend or relative, and then when you give him, he gives it on to him.
Yeah, because let's say that they don't have money.
So all you have to see is the day you're giving, is he eligible to get? If he's eligible to give, you can. No, yeah, that's his problem. Yes. So let's say you give him $5,000 and then he gives 4,000 of that to whom? To other guy. Understand? And now he's sitting at what? 1,000 again, right? So and you give him, okay, you're zakat eligible again. So give it to him. Now remember, everything has to come with fear of Allah. If a person is using this tactic to just make money, then it is. Yes, yes. Yes, that's completely fine. So key word is he is genuine in what he's doing. There's absolutely nothing wrong. So he has to give permission. If you're giving it to him, then he has to give permission. Yes. As long as he permits you to do it. So he's like, okay, you know what? I'm bad at keeping money. Can you do this for me? Then it's his money, and basically you're helping him out to it. Yes. 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 No, 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 no. Those are fixed items. Remember, the fixed items. Yes, exactly. If you're the sole owner of that business, then you are. That $5,000 is cash.
Even though there's operations that are running, but they will come like today.
Today you have 5,000, and then as you subtract liabilities. If there is a paycheck that was owed yesterday, that's a liability. Or there's a paycheck that's owed today, listen, that's a liability. Subtract liabilities to whatever you're left with, and then you. Yes, yes, because that's yes. Anything fixed, car, trucks, buildings, people.
The materials, they are, they are people buying textiles and all that.
No, no, only the finished product. So for example, whatever you're selling, if your business is making textile and selling carpets, so once you have a carpet which is sellable, which is a what item, stock item, now that is a zakatable item, now because that's a what, that's a merchandise, right? So only on the finished item, not the process. So you got wool, you got ropes, you got, none of that is zakatable. Only the finished product. Yes, yes, absolutely. That's the first thing is to subtract. You only have 3,000. Yes.
They're living in another relative's house. They have like a motorbike.
That's immediate need.
That's their immediate.
Yes.
They have kids and stuff going to school. Seems that they're making money, but I know that they can use more money. So let's say one of my, she's not married. She doesn't have a job. She lives in someone else's house, but she has maybe some gold. I just don't know how much gold she has, and I'm guessing it's more than this.
So the way I would help them again is not leeway. Find out if any of the sons have.
She doesn't have any sons.
She's by herself. Yeah, then someone you can ask someone else to ask. So, is there any sign that she has gold? What I mean by sign, but like when you see if she's wearing the next time.
No. I mean, when she got married at some point, that gold was taken away, but I'm pretty sure somebody has gifted her something.
But even if you have zakat, and a bracelet doesn't cost $1,500. It could. Being in the condition as she is, she probably have sold it by now.
What I'm trying to add is there's a lot of relatives.
Yes. So
and there's nowhere for me to find out because that's considered taboo. Like, you're trying to give zakat, they consider even Sadaqa, which is smiling is Sadaqa, right? They're like, you're like, no, just don't do it. Don't try to pursue Islam. That's what the conversation is. And I really want to do this because I
So,
think
so, so tell them, sorry, I can't help you either then.
In that situation, can you consider very softly that if they settle down,
Just because, inshallah, maybe I would. Listen, you ask a mufti, inshallah, he'll give you a fatwa, inshallah.
they don't have $50,000.
That's for sure. But then, if you had to take that standard, half the guys sitting over here would also be probably zakat on the table. Everyone would be taking zakat.
finish items, if you have buildings,
Yes.
it's not finished. It's not finished yet. You have to pay taxes on the apartments. But you have more than one apartment. Let's say you have three.
But that's for rent.
Then cannot be rented because they're not finished yet. So you don't have.
But don't think, but rental item, anything, they're all fixed structures. No zakat on fixed structures.
But the rental income is tax.
Yeah, but that just you just add on to it.
Do we need to consider the tax rebate when we are calculating?
You don't have that because tax rebate is only something you are eligible for after you file your taxes, right? Once you give the taxes, you will find out how much you get. So once you get it, then you just get added to your next year.
The second question is, what if someone has a residential land back in their country, but they don't use, they don't stay in it or anything, it's just they need to consider the amount.
You will calculate that will be considered only for giving zakat. Sorry, it will not be considered for giving zakat, but will be considered for taking zakat. Yes.
You know how there's other excess clothing and other things. So can we, like, is it okay to give more zakah, or like consider, like, let's say we just say all the things consider it,
Okay, but those are not considered in giving zakat.
like little things that I'm not really sure about.
So look, everything besides any look, cash, gold, silver, cash, business assets. That's all. So you don't have to count your clothes. You don't have to count your cars. You don't have to count. Yes, yes, that's only counted in receiving zakat. Yes, yes. In giving zakat, you don't have to worry about any of that.
Some people they buy very expensive cars to take it off their business expense.
So I explained that before, right? And said one of the things is remember when you're paying, when you're giving, when you're talking about zakat, you're not playing with IRS. You're playing with Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Listen. So now you have to be genuine to yourself that is this la car, and I technically you don't have to give zakat on it. Right? You can have like 5 weekend cars, and there's no zakat in any of them. Listen. Now, if you have them for the sake of hacking, there is no zakat. But if you genuinely have them so they're not cash, so that means they're just what cash standards for you.
Now, when I say there are certain laws that if you buy a car worth of 100,000, it's hard to tax.
Yes, yes. So again, to that root,
So
broke out from this Assam state everything's okay. Everything's okay.